Hey everybody, welcome back to Whiteboard Finance. Today we're diving into one of the most overlooked dangers facing retirement portfolios right now. And no, it's not just inflation or stock market crashes. This is not a typical doom and gloom video. This is real. Only a few financial YouTubers that I watch have actually addressed this, so I wanted to actually make a dedicated video about this. This is something a little bit more hidden, a little bit more stealthy, but just as deadly. This is called the sequence of return risk. So if you're close to retirement or already in retirement, this could mean the difference between living comfortably for 30 years or running out of money halfway through. So grab a coffee, 20-cent iced coffee made at home, please. Not the Starbucks. The $3 is going to make a huge difference down the road. Sit back and let's break this down in plain English. Okay, so you're asking yourself, Marko, what is sequence of return risk? Please explain this to me. And that I will, my friend. So let me give you an example over here provided by Market Sentiment. This is a great infographic. I was going to draw this on the whiteboard a bit, but I figured this is a lot easier and cleaner to share with you. So this is why it's important of when you get returns. They matter just as much as what your returns are. Let me repeat that. This is an example of why when you get returns matter just as much as what your returns are. So let's take this hypothetical example of Alan and Charlie. They both retire with $1 million, which you can see where my cursor is right there. So they both plan to withdraw $50,000 a year and adjust it by 2% annually for inflation. This has typically been the 4% rule, which we'll talk about later in this video. And they're actually adjusting for their inflation, okay? They both get an average return of 6% a year over time, which is very conservative after you adjust for inflation. But Alan gets hammered right out of the gate. So Alan is the red line, Charlie is the green line, and they both started with $1 million. So Alan sees 3 straight years of negative 15% returns. So year 1, year 2, year 3, he's over here with about $482,000, okay? So Charlie gets the same exact minus 15% returns, but they happen after his 10th year of retirement, okay, which you can see right here. So what happens? Well, you can see in this example that Alan burns through his money and he runs out of money by year 15. Do you see where this 0 is right here in between years 14 and 16? Yes, the number between 14 and 16 is 15. So you can see that he runs out of money right here in year 15. So if you look at Charlie, he's still cruising along. He's in year 18, and this guy's still got $250,000. He's got $247,039, okay? Because of when the bad years hit. Again, Alan gets hit in the first 3 years. Charlie doesn't get hit until year 10. So Charlie still has $250,000 at the end of 15 years when Alan actually hit $0 in year 15. That, my friends, is sequence of return risk. And that's why good planning isn't just about what you invest in. It's about how you manage your withdrawals even when the market turns ugly. So let me show you more examples. Okay, so let's take a look at this history lesson based on 1966 versus 1982 retirees. This isn't just theory. History backs it up as well. If you retired in 1966, where you see where my cursor is down here, you can see on the y-axis, this is the maximum sustainable withdrawal rate. It goes from 0 to 10%, and then the years go from 1925 to 1995, and I'll tell you why that is here in a second. So if you retired in 1966, you were up against brutal headwinds. This was high inflation, stagnant stock market, miserable bond returns. Does that sound familiar? Your withdrawal rate was still about 4%, as you can see right here where these bars are. But if you retired in 1982, where this peak bar is, right when markets and interest rates started to boom, you could have safely withdrawn almost 10% a year and been fine. That's like night and day, you guys. Okay, that's more than twice as much, 4% versus 10%. So yes, the market direction of your first few years of retirement really does shape your entire financial life. So you're probably watching this video and saying, well, Marko, I'm 25, I'm 35, I'm 45. I'm not going to be retired for another 20, 30, 40 years, right? Well, it's important to be aware of this because this really dictates how you start to transition your portfolio and what your portfolio contains as you get older. That's the whole point. So if you've been following personal finance for any extended period of time, I'm sure you've heard of the 4% rule. If you haven't, go Google it. But the important thing is in 2025, does the 4% rule still work? Does this thing still even hold up? So let's tackle the famous 4% rule. So it came from the Trinity study back in 1998. This is where 3 professors ran thousands of portfolio simulations. They found that if you withdraw 4% of your nest egg in year 1, then adjust for inflation, you'd likely make it 30 years without ever running out of money. And in a lot of those cases, some people didn't even touch their initial principal that they retired with, which is pretty incredible. So newer studies are actually extending this data through 2022, and they still show that the 4% rule holds up. So if you take a look at this chart or this GIF, this GIF, is it GIF or GIF? I pronounce it GIF. Some people, there's a debate online about GIF or GIF. I pronounce it GIF. But anyway, if you look at this GIF from my buddy's website, Nick Majuli, this is ofdollarsanddata.com. You can see here the survival rate of all these different types of portfolios. We have 50-50, stocks and bonds, 60-40, 70-30, 80-20, 90-10, 100-0, all stocks. But you can see the 4% rule, it basically has a 100% survival rate, which still holds up through 2022 when this chart is actually coming from. But if we go back one chart, this is from 1926 to 1995, you can see that the payout period of 4% is almost 100% all across the board. You can see 100% stocks, 75-25, 50-50, 25-75, and 100% bonds. And you can actually squeeze this out a little bit more. Again, this is from 1926 to 1995, but this is also because the U.S. has been the Michael Jordan of economies, okay? Notice how I didn't say LeBron James, okay? No bag. No bag, just longevity. Michael, Kobe, Jokic. I said it. Top 3 all time. Let's go. Bring it out of the comments, baby. Hold on. Yeah, Nikola Jokic.
There is no second best.
There is no second best. So strong growth, reserve currency, political stability. I've been talking about that on this channel forever. So most countries, they haven't been so lucky, okay? So when you see all these 4% rule data sets, they only talk about the U.S. stock market. When they include global data, they have 38 developed countries, which I'm going to show you here in this infographic right now. 38 developed countries over 130 years. The safe withdrawal rate actually drops from 4%, it was actually 4.2%, to just 2.6%, okay? You can see that, 2.26%. You can see that right where my cursor is when you're looking at a 60-40 stocks to bond portfolio. Okay, so that's a big difference, and it reminds me that history isn't guaranteed to repeat. A lot of people, they invest in VXUS, that's total international stock market. I get PTSD when I look at VXUS, but it has outperformed year to date when compared to the S&P 500 in 2025. But if you want to look at this tab right here, this is from Morningstar. I'm not going to go through this whole presentation because it's pretty long. You have to actually give your email to sign up for it. But the gist is their 2024 research reveals that 3.7% is still a safe withdrawal rate for 2024. So even though the Trinity study, it has been redone and it is older, you know, Morningstar and a couple other sources say that 3.7-ish, you're still good. Okay, so now you're probably wondering, Marko, you educated me about sequence of return risk. I wasn't aware of this. Thank you. You're the best finance channel on YouTube. You're too kind. Thank you. You're too kind. I'll just pat myself on the back for you.
There is no second best.
Okay, so I'm just kidding. But before we get into these actual strategies of how to actually combat sequence of return risks, I have 3 of them here in this video. I want to get into today's sponsor, ClickBank. If you've ever thought about making money online or building a side hustle that could actually turn into something real, pay attention because affiliate marketing is one of the easiest ways and most lucrative ways to turn your passion into a real income. Affiliate marketing sounds awesome on the surface. You promote a product, you earn a commission, rinse and repeat, and the checks just come in, right? But when you actually sit down and get started, it's overwhelming. What product should I promote? How do I write high converting copy? Where do I post? How do I track results? It's a lot to figure out, especially when you're juggling work, family, or even trying to build your own brand. I'll be straight up with you. I have friends who are earning full-time incomes just from affiliate marketing. No inventory, no customer service. They're just connecting the right audience with the right products. If you're able to build an audience, even a small one in a specific niche, you can easily partner with companies in that space and generate a legitimate side income or even go full-time. I've done it myself with this channel. So I'm talking real income here. We're not talking some pie in the sky promise. That's where today's sponsor, ClickBank, comes in. ClickBank is one of the oldest and most trusted affiliate marketplaces online. They connect creators and affiliates for over 25 years now, but now they've actually raised the bar even further with a tool called Ember. And this is a game changer. Ember is like having a personal AI marketing assistant in your pocket. It's built specifically for affiliate marketers and does all the heavy lifting for you. It writes your ad copy. It helps create social media content and posts. It's trained on ClickBank's top performing offers, so you're not just guessing at what works, it already knows. So whether you're just starting out or have some experience affiliate marketing, this tool saves you time, increases your confidence, and helps you make sales faster. ClickBank has seen a typical affiliate marketing campaign workflow of writing, graphics, video, and landing page building take about 393 minutes. It's probably a lot more than that if you ask me. But with Ember, that can be cut down to just 21 minutes, making it about 18.7 times faster. You don't need to be a copywriter. You don't need to be a tech wizard. You just need the right guidance and the courage to start. And Ember gives you both. It literally streamlines the entire process so you can focus on growing your business instead of getting stuck in analysis paralysis. So if you're ready to finally start making money online or take your side hustle to the next level, check out ClickBank and Ember using the link in the description. You'll get access to the same tools that successful affiliates are already using to build real income streams from anywhere in the world. Huge thanks to ClickBank for sponsoring this video. Check out the link below. It's clickbank.com/ember-whiteboard-finance. Okay, so strategy number 1 is the cash reserve strategy. So keep a cash reserve. I've only been mentioning on this channel since the beginning of time. This is your emergency fund, okay? Maybe 1 or 2 years worth of living expenses sitting safely in cash or short-term bonds. So when markets crash, instead of selling your stocks at the bottom, you live off your cash reserve. Duh. Okay, I tweeted about that maybe like a month or 2 ago when all this tariff stuff started. And people were like, well, why would you be in cash? Blah, 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 blah. You have too much in cash. Don't think of it as just defense. Think of it as a war chest as well, okay? So I keep about 12 months of cash, or excuse me, living expenses in months of cash for a rainy day fund. I would recommend that. So like, say for example, you're a single guy or gal, bachelor, bachelorette, you only need, I don't know, 2-3 months, right, of monthly expenses. If you have someone dependent on you, you know, like children or spouse or whoever, then I would keep about 6 months. And then if you are a commission salesperson, small business owner, your income is all over the place, I would personally do 12 to 18 months, but that's just me. Maybe I'm too conservative. So when markets recover, you can go back to your normal withdrawal plan, as you can see right here. So is there a huge impact to this on your portfolio? Absolutely. If someone retired in 1966 and just skipped one withdrawal during the 1974 crash, you can see that they ended up with $1.3 million. $1.3 million 30 years later instead of being flat broke. So take a look at this chart. On the left-hand side of the screen is remaining wealth. On the bottom of the screen are years. X-axis is years. Y-axis is remaining wealth. And if they skip 1974, boom, they end up with 1.3 milli. Okay? Proof is in the pudding. Cash reserve strategy number 1. Let's get to number 2. Strategy number 2, to combat sequence of return risk. The reason I'm saying that very slow is hopefully the Google algorithm and the SEO will understand this video is about sequence of return risk. Marko Whiteboard Finance, good finance channel. Please promote me in the algorithm. Stop promoting grifters. Strategy 2, bucketing. So break your retirement portfolio into 2 buckets based on time horizon. You have short-term needs for the next 1 to 5 years, use cash and short-term bonds. Do you have mid-term needs? Use intermediate bonds. Long-term, meaning 10 years or more, invest in stocks for growth, baby. M2 money supply. Petrodollar, global reserve currency. Let's go. Printing money out of thin air. Let's go, baby. US dollar dominance. So withdrawal only from safe assets in the short term. It's so funny when I do stuff like that. You got these old people watching this video because it's inevitably going to be pushed into their retirement feed because they're older. That guy's trying to be too funny. I can't take him seriously. He's trying to make a very boring, dry, dull topic funny. But I just don't trust him. I don't trust them. He has too much fun in his videos. Okay. No panic selling, no trying to time the market. You just break it down by short, medium, long-term needs. This lets you build a retirement portfolio that's durable, flexible, and mentally easier to stick with during rough patches. So again, here are these buckets. Bucket 1 is years 1 through 5. Bucket 2 is years 6 through 10. Bucket 3 is 10 or more years. Okay, this should be equities and growth assets, as you can see here. So if you look at the x-axis, this is portfolio allocation, which I actually like. I'm all about the pies, the weights of the slice of the pie. Your pie should just be your net worth. Each slice is a percentage of your pie. Fun fact, I talked to my one buddy yesterday. I was telling him, I'm like, dude, I have like 20% of my net worth in Bitcoin. And he's like, dude, I'm at like 80. And this is not, wife, 3 kids, very successful career. Not going to disclose, obviously, who it is, but I thought that was incredible. But anyway, if we take a look at the portfolio allocation percentage, again, equities 50%, bonds 30%, cash 20%, if these are your time horizons. Okay, and finally, number 3, this one makes the most sense, is the variable withdrawal strategy. So what does this mean? So instead of pulling out a fixed dollar amount every year, you withdraw a set percentage of your portfolio's value. So in good years, you give yourself a raise. In bad years, you tighten your belt. Simple as that. It's common sense. So this approach gives you downside protection. You never drain the tank completely. You never bust the full. Oh, yeah. But yes, it does mean your income can vary a lot from year to year, right? So if you're obviously going through a period of poor market performance, you may have to be a little bit more lean that year. That's when you go to the rice and beans in retirement, or you just move abroad and you live off like $1,000 a month like a king anywhere else in the world. So fun fact, even retirees in 1966 who faced brutal markets, they could have pulled out 10% a year at the start using a flexible system instead of a rigid fixed dollar withdrawal. So if you take a look at this, again, remaining wealth, you have dollars on the y-axis, year on the x-axis, and you can see what these initial withdrawal rates were. Constant amount, constant percentage, constant percentage, constant percentage. The dark blue line is a constant amount, and then if you look at the constant percentage, it goes up and to the right instead of to 0 in 1995. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Now, if we move on, I'll show you this study from BlackRock. I think that this is very interesting. Stay tuned. So here's where it gets really interesting when you're talking about the psychology. So despite all this math and these charts that I've shown you, the real risk isn't always running out of money. It's never enjoying the money you saved. Half of America. Oh yeah, I'll just hoard it. I got to keep working. Bro, just light up the cigs, go to the cafe, gamble on some sports, okay? Be normal. I'm just kidding. Don't smoke. Smoking's bad. So a BlackRock survey found that most retirees still had 80% of their pre-retirement savings left after 2 decades. Why? Because they couldn't flip the mental switch from save to, hey, it's okay to spend. Yeah, that's the whole reason you worked your whole life, is so you can spend it. Yes, give some to church, give it away, give it to your kids. I get all that. But spend a little bit on yourself, okay? So over half of retirees said they refused to let their savings drop below a set amount. And a full 25% didn't even have a real plan for withdrawals. Moral of the story, the real danger isn't just blowing through your savings. It's not spending it meaningfully when you actually can. So if you watched this far, thank you so much. You're a real triple OG. If you've gotten to this point in the video, which most of you probably have, just comment OG, just OG, original gangster. And if you're really an OG from like my car video days, give yourself a triple OG. Just write a little triple OG in the comments section so I know who my triple OGs are. So let's wrap this up. Yes, sequence risk is real. Yes, the 4% rule still mostly holds up, but you need to be flexible, cautious, and plan ahead. You need to have a cash reserve. Use a bucketing strategy that I talked about. Be flexible with your withdrawals. And most importantly, don't live like you're broke when you're actually rich. Spend some money, dude. Money is a tool. It's just freedom units. It doesn't matter. It's not real. You know why?
It's all going to zero against Bitcoin. If you don't understand that yet, you're going to be impoverished.
It's meant to help you live well, take care of your loved ones, and create memories, not just sit there in an account collecting dust. So if you got value from today's video, do me a favor, smash the like button. Sorry, don't smash. Gently click the like button, gently click subscribe, gently share this video with 13,000 friends, okay? And if you haven't already, Share with your parents. Share with someone who's a little bit older. They may enjoy learning about sequence of return risk. As always, thank you so much for watching and have a prosperous day. Yeah. Wow. He tried to be funny. None of this data applies. BlackRock study did not compute. Too much attempted humor.